I never expected a simple act of kindness would change my life forever. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started like any other day. I got out of bed, rubbing my tired eyes. The weight of the world blanketed my shoulders. My heart raced with an ache I couldn't shake. As I stepped into the crowded subway, the smell of sweat and metal mingled in the air. My heart pounded as I pressed against strangers, feeling the swell of anxiety in my chest. I struggled to breathe, a lump lodged in my throat. I thought about my mother's hospital bed, the sterile smell of antiseptic haunting my dreams. Would today be the day? The thought made my palms tremble. I was scared, so scared. I relied on my little brother Ben's laughter to lift me, yet he relied on me too. I had to keep it together, but every day, it felt like I was holding sand slipping through my fingers. As the train screeched to a halt, the doors opened with a hissing sound. I stumbled onto the platform. That's when I saw her, a lady with bright blue hair and an eccentric dress. She stood by a pillar, holding a bouquet of colorful flowers. Her eyes sparkled like the ocean. It was as if she carried the weight of the world, yet she radiated light. She offered me a single daisy, her hands trembling slightly, like she was waiting for my response. I hesitated, uncertainty flooding my mind. Why would she give me this flower? What was her story? The other commuters rushed by, their minds elsewhere. I felt the warmth of the daisy in my palm, a bright contrast against the grayness around me. The moment seemed to suspend time. My heartbeat slowed. I took a deep breath. "Thank you," I murmured, my voice barely escaping my lips. The instant connection felt divine, yet it puzzled me. As I looked up to meet her gaze, a fleeting shadow crossed her face. She grabbed my elbow, her grip firm. "You need this more than you know," she said, urgency slipping through her words. Her eyes bore into me, and for a moment, I felt seen. Before I could ask her what she meant, she disappeared into the crowd, leaving nothing but a fluttering heart. I stood frozen, the daisy clutched tightly in my hand. Questions raced through my mind. What had just happened? Why did her words resonate so deeply? With every heartbeat, an inexplicable urge swelled within me. I glanced down the tunnel, searching for her. No sign. The air felt thick, heavy with expectation. What was I meant to do with this flower? Why did I feel this shift, a crack in the heavy shell surrounding me? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the day wore on, the daisy remained a vibrant reminder nestled in my pocket. Despite the usual chaos that followed meetings, phone calls, and the ever-present worry about my mother's condition, I felt a flicker of warmth blooming within me. Each time I brushed against the flower, its delicate petals stirred something dormant inside, but as I stepped into the hospital room later that afternoon, the heaviness returned. The familiar antiseptic smell mixed with the sterile sound of machines. My heart sank when I saw my mother, her frail form swallowed by the white sheets. I wanted to be strong for her, yet I felt like a shadow of myself. "Mom," I whispered, leaning closer. The once bright sparkle in her eyes had dimmed, replaced by a glaze that haunted my dreams. I felt like I was slowly losing her, bit by bit. "Hey, sweetheart," she mumbled, her voice barely rising above a whisper. I forced a smile, the kind that never quite reached my eyes. "I brought you some flowers," I said, pulling out the daisy. I held it out to her, but then my hand trembled. I found this on the subway." "Can you believe it?" She smiled faintly, the corners of her mouth lifting just a little. "It's beautiful, honey, she said, reaching out to touch it. You have a way of finding beauty even in tough times. As her fingers brushed against the petals, I could see for a moment that the flower sparked a flicker of life within her. It was a small reminder of the world outside these walls, a fleeting connection to happiness we once shared. But just as quickly, her expression shifted to one of worry. Is everything okay? She asked, her concern etched deep into her features. Of course, Mom. I'm just tired, I replied, the truth twisting in my chest. I wanted nothing more than to unburden myself, but I couldn't. She needed me to be strong. As the hours passed, I watched the clock tick away, each second heavy with unspoken fears. Suddenly, the door pushed open, and a nurse walked in, her face obscured, the light catching a glimmer of something in her eye. Visiting hours are almost up, the nurse said gently. We have some news regarding your mother's treatment plan. My heart dropped. Had I just regained a sliver of hope only to lose it again? What kind of news? I pressed, bracing for the worst. The nurse's gaze softened, and she placed a hand on my shoulder. There's an experimental treatment, she started, her voice steady. It's risky but could make a significant difference. We may have to travel to a facility that specializes in this. As the words fell into silence, a surge of emotions overwhelmed me. A part of me wanted to scream, what if it didn't work? What if we lost more than just time? But the flicker of hope wrestled at the edges of my mind. It was a chance, a whisper of possibility amid the storm. Let's do it, I found myself saying, the decision rolling from my tongue before I could weigh the consequences. My mother's face brightened faintly, light igniting in her eyes, but then just as suddenly it dimmed again. Darling, are you sure? She whispered, uncertainty lacing her words. It could be a long road, we'll need to be patient. My resolve wavered for an instant, but then I thought of my brother Ben, who needed her as much as I did. We're in this together, Mom. We've faced so much already. We can face this too. Her smile flickered back, a fragile promise of a fight that neither of us dared to imagine we could lose. As the nurse left, I noticed the daisy still lying on the bedside table, its petals vibrant against the stark white linens. But just when the hope seemed to flow freely, I received an unexpected call. My phone buzzed like a warning sign. It was my boss, her voice sharp and urgent on the other end. You have to come back to the office. There's a crisis no one but you can handle. My heart plummeted. I can't right now, I replied, desperation coloring my voice. My mother, there's no time for that. You need to choose, she interrupted, the finality of her tone sending chills down my spine. I hung up, shaking, the weight of that impossible decision crushing me once more. Behind me, I heard a soft gasp. It was my mother sitting upright, her brows furrowed. What's wrong? In that moment, everything felt like a fragile glass, ready to shatter. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. Then the phone buzzed again, an unnamed number lighting up the screen. My breath caught. Could it be the estranged father I hadn't heard from in years? I reached out to answer the call, my hand trembling. What could he want? What would it mean for everything I held dear? As I pressed the button to answer, I felt my heart race with uncertainty. This crossroads would shape the path for us all, but I had no idea which direction we were heading in. The weight of choices loomed clear, a fork in the road where hope entwined with fear. The moment I accepted the call, the world around me seemed to blur. My mother's frail figure, the sterile smell of the hospital room, and the distant sounds of beeping machines faded into a haze, leaving just my pounding heart and the quiet voice on the other end of the line. Hello? The voice was hesitant, almost uncertain. I could hardly breathe as I tried to place the silhouette of the man behind the unfamiliar tone. It's me, your father. Each word hit me like a shockwave, reverberating through my thoughts in a cacophony of disbelief and buried memories. Dad? It's been a long time, I stuttered, grappling with both the expectation of anger and the ghost of longing that stirred within me. So many years had passed since I had allowed myself to think of him, let alone speak with him. I know, he rushed, urgency threading through his words. "I'm sorry for everything, but I need to talk to you. It's important." Glancing at my mother, who was now peering at me with confusion, I felt a knot of anxiety tighten in my throat. "Can this wait?" "I can't. No, please." "It can't wait," he insisted, cutting me off with a desperation that resonated deep within. "I'm nearby. I want to see you and I want to help with your mother." The tension spiraled as he offered salvation while wielding the heavy burden of our fractured past. "Help?" I echoed, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. "You left us when we needed you most. Why would I trust you now?" "Because I've changed," he replied, the strain evident in his voice. "I've spent too long living with regret. Maybe this is my way to make amends. I want to support you, both of you." I could hardly reconcile the warmth of his words with the memories I carried. Each recollection was a jagged piece of glass, still able to cut deep. I remembered childhood birthdays overshadowed by his absence and the nights my mother cried quietly after a particularly hard day. The scars ran deep. Could they really heal? I hesitated. "I can't just drop everything. My mom's not well. I need to be here for her." "I understand," he said, softer now. "I'll wait for you in the coffee shop down the street. You can take your time. But please don't shut me out again." The unsettling silence buzzed between us, filled with unspoken histories and the weight of choices unmade. The string of the call felt taut, ready to snap. "Let me think about it," I managed finally, my voice a whisper. "Okay, just please, think about it," he pleaded before declining the call. I stood there, feeling the silence vibrate around me. My mother tilted her head, her brow knitted. "Who was that?" It was Dad." I squeezed my eyes shut, relishing and resenting the way the word felt. Her expression shifted, a tempest of emotions playing across her weary features. "You didn't tell him about me, did you?" "No, not yet," I said, unable to share the weight of those words just yet. The shadows of the past hovered like specters around us, and I couldn't see a way to shine light into their darkness without causing more pain. She paused, battling her own fears. "What do you intend to do?" "I don't know, Mom," I confessed. "He's asking to help. He thinks he can make things right. But can he?" Her voice tremored, anxiety etching deep lines around her mouth. "We've gotten so used to living without him. Can we change that?" Deep down, I felt that familiar tug of doubt, battling against a rising flicker of hope. What if he could be a source of strength? But with this shimmer of possibility came the gnawing fear of further heartbreak. A silence stretched between us, the kind that resonates through the very soul. I caught sight of the daisy on the bedside table once more, its petals still vibrant yet fragile, just like the tenuous hope I was clinging to. "Mom," the sudden rush of footsteps interrupted our moment, and the door swung open. A doctor entered, her expression serious and her eyes scanning my mother's chart. "We need to discuss your mother's treatment soon," she stated crisply, oblivious to the tempest of emotions swirling through the room. I steadied my breath, but my heart raced. Just when I thought clarity was in reach, another storm threatened. Anxiety mounted as I felt pulled in two directions, one toward my mother's immediate needs and another toward my past, each equally demanding my attention. "Can I count on you to discuss the options?" she asked, focusing on me with an intensity that demanded my full attention. "Of course," I replied absent-mindedly, still tangled in the web of my thoughts. As the doctor spoke, the significance of each word faded into the background, consumed by the weight of the decisions at hand. My mind raced between family, hope, and an uncertain future wrapped in the tangle of forgotten connections. Just then, the phone buzzed again, a familiar number lighting up the screen. My pulse quickened. Ben had heard about Mom's latest appointment and wanted updates. The laughter and warmth of our childhood echoed in that simple gesture. As I glanced at my mother, her eyes reflecting both love and fear, the new crisis collided with the old wound still festering beneath the surface. With each passing moment, it became clear no decision would be easy. And as the chapter of our shared lives unfurled with a fragile thread, I wondered whether I was ready for the truth that lay ahead of family, of forgiveness, and the challenges that lingered like shadows. The minutes felt like hours as I stood there, the phone buzzing in my hand, waging an internal battle against the swirling chaos. I had always wanted Ben to be the one to share this journey with me, the one who could light up the darkness with laughter and hope. But how could I possibly explain this newfound turmoil, the specter of my father looming just outside the periphery of our lives? Against my better judgment, I answered the call. "Hey, Ben, hey. How's everything going?" I heard Mom's in the hospital again. His voice was warm, like a hug through the phone, and it brought a sharp sting of nostalgia. "It's complicated," I whispered, glancing at my mother, who was now staring out the window, lost amid the reflection of the trees that swayed like delicate dancers. "I'll fill you in later." "Not ready for the whole story, huh?" "I get it," he replied, a knowing softness in his tone. "Just remember, I'm here for you. Just name the time and place." As his words enveloped me, I recalled our carefree childhood days abundant with laughter, summer adventures, and the unwavering trust we had in each other. Ben had always been my anchor. He could lift me from sadness with a simple glance or a smile that illuminated the gloom, but this time, I felt fractured, unsure. "Ben, what would you do if someone from your past suddenly showed up wanting to help?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, fearing the weight of my own vulnerability. There was a pause that stretched, his breath caught in surprise. "Are we talking about the same person?" "Yes." My heart banged in my chest. "My dad." I can't believe it," he finally said, hesitation lacing his words. "What does he want?" "He wants to help with Mom's treatment," I said, my voice thickening with each syllable. "But how can I trust him? Everything he put us through. I don't know if I can let him in again." A gentle sigh sounded from the other end. "Look, I can't pretend to know what you've been through, but sometimes it's the unexpected kindness that leads us to unexpected places. You don't have to decide everything now. Just take it one step at a time." As I contemplated Ben's words, I felt a shift within myself, that flicker of hope igniting again. Maybe there was a path beyond the entangled threads of bitterness and pain. Maybe my father's return could mean a chance at something better. "Thanks, Ben," I said softly, clutching the phone as if it could anchor me in this tempest. "I really appreciate it. Anytime, just remember that you're not alone." "I'm here," he replied, and I could almost feel the warmth of his hand on my shoulder. I knew he would stand by me no matter what I decided. After ending the call, I took a deep breath, recalling the note left by the doctor on my mother's treatment options. A part of me wished I could simply dismiss my father's sudden reappearance as yet another storm to weather, but there was a curious curiosity sprouting within. Could someone like him make a difference? I turned back to my mother as the doctor began to speak, the familiar rhythm of her voice slicing through my muddled thoughts. "MRI results show there's some improvement, but we need to discuss the next steps." My heart eased slightly at the good news, but the grasp of imminent decisions remained at my heels. Yet before I could revel in this fragile hope, my mother's face took on a suddenly still expression, an alarm playing in her eyes as moments passed. "Mom?" I called out, moving closer to her bedside. "Are you okay?" She blinked rapidly, grabbing the edges of the bed tightly, her knuckles whitening. "I feel funny, like everything is spinning." "Just breathe," I urged, an overwhelming sense of dread pooling in my stomach. But as the doctor rushed to my mother's side, my heart raced with questions that had no answers. "What's happening?" The doctor called for assistance, and suddenly the room erupted in movement, nurses clamoring to attend to my mother. They quickly assessed her, the urgency manifesting in their serious tones. My attention snagged at the trail of worry etched into my mother's face. Amid the confusion, I stole a glance back at my phone as a new message popped up, an unrecognized number. I hesitated, but as a silence settled over the frantic flurry around me, I opened the text. The words sent a chill through me. "I know you don't trust me, but my offer to help is genuine. Let's talk." My fingers trembled against the screen, the weight of the moment crashing upon me. Choices spiraled in the air like uncatchable fireflies. Would I answer the plea of the man who had abandoned us, or would I turn away from a possible beacon of hope? Suspense warped through time as I stood amidst the chaos, poised on the edge of a precipice, my heart wavering. I felt tears burn at the corners of my eyes, reality fracturing as the lines between past and present began to blur, threatening to pull me under into a tide of unknown choices. The hospital room pulsed with energy, a whirlwind of movement and urgency. I stood frozen, a statue amid the storm, grappling with the implications of that text message. How could I even consider giving him a second chance? And yet, a flicker of desperation urged me to explore this possibility. My heart pounded, torn between the fear of my father's re-emergence and the faint glimmer of hope he might represent. "Let's step outside," the doctor said, motioning for me to follow him into the hallway. As we walked, I wanted to scream and beg the universe to spare my mother from the unpredictability of illness and broken relationships. The overhead lights buzzed softly, slicing through the tension wrapped around my chest, and I struggled to pull a sense of normalcy from the chaos. "Her vitals show some improvement," the doctor said, and I felt a fragile hope swell within. "But we need to monitor her closely. It's important to remain positive during this time. Does she have any family support?" His question hung heavily in the air, echoing my fears that I thought of my father's absence, the man who had once cast a long, dark shadow over our lives. I don't know," I managed to reply. "He wants to help, but I don't trust him. Not after everything." "Sometimes it takes a rocky path to find clarity," he said with a gentle firmness. His reassurance was like a warm hand on my back, a reminder that help could come in unexpected forms. Even in the midst of turmoil that I nodded, though doubt still twisted within me. The conversation I definitely didn't want to have loomed in the background of my mind, ready to creep forward when I least expected it. The doctor squeezed my arm gently before walking away, leaving me to grapple with my thoughts as the hospital ambience gently hummed around me. Just then, a burst of laughter pierced through the solemn atmosphere. I turned to see a small child, her laughter contagious as she danced alongside an older woman in a blue sweater. The joy in their brief moment of connection made my heart clench. How could laughter exist so close to the walls of sorrow? But in that laughter, there was a reflection of hope, a reminder that life could be light even in dark times. That I took a step back into my mother's room, finding her now more alert. The nurses were steadying her, and though she looked weary, her eyes sparkled with those small remnants of mischief I knew so well. "It's just a dizzy spell," she assured me, and I felt a rush of relief wash over me. "Mom, do you want me to call someone? Any Anuho might help?" The words spilled from my throat, heavy and anxious. I wanted to shield her, to pull us both away from the shadows lurking at the edges of our lives. "I know it's difficult, sweetheart," she said, her voice soft as she reached for my hand, struggling to maintain an unwavering gaze. "But I think he might have changed. People can surprise us. You know that." My breath caught in my throat. "You really think he deserves another chance?" I couldn't mask the disbelief. That twisted charm, the warmth that could feel genuine but was often fleeting, would I let myself believe in it again? She smiled, the kind of smile that I had once thought could conquer any darkness, and it made my heart ache with longing for those easier times. "Sometimes, you have to risk the stars to find a brighter sky," her words wrapped around me, warming my heart, but they also deepened the conflict inside. I felt a desperate urgency to reach out to Ben again. He might provide guidance, an anchor to ground me as I navigated these turbulent waters. Before I could think too deeply, I sent him a quick message, an uncertain question echoing in my heart. "Can we talk? I need your help." As I settled into the plastic chair next to my mother's bed, I felt an unsettling sensation creep over me, a sense of impending change. A few moments felt like hours, and just when I thought I could breathe again, the door swung open. The familiar figure stepped inside, his presence electric. "Was him. Hi, I got your message." He looked older, heavier, with a depth of experience etched across his brow, but the surprise in his eyes held a spark of sincerity. "What are you doing here?" I managed, my voice trembling as the air thickened with unsaid words. "Denise told me what happened." "I want to help," he said, his voice steady but vulnerable, a perfect mirror of the conflict within me. My heart raced, guarded and wary, as he took a step forward. Was it possible that beneath the years of neglect, amidst the chaos of emotions, there lay a semblance of a man ready to reconcile? Across the room, my mother watched, her expression unreadably a crossroads of hope and hesitance pooling in her gaze. I wanted to react, to scream out in disbelief or run into a protective embrace, but at that moment, I was caught between two worlds unraveling before me, the one I desperately wanted to escape and the one that might guide me towards healing. The air vibrated with unspoken fears, unresolved feelings, and the spectacular possibility of healing, a daunting task ahead, with new choices waiting to be made. Would I seize this moment or watch it slip away? As he stepped closer, the weight of all those years hung poignantly in the air, and I felt the precipice of change beckoning me forward. The air in the room felt laden with possibilities, each breath weighed down by the memories of what had come before. My father stood there, a tangible embodiment of ghosts I thought I had long buried. The tightness in my chest flared as I struggled against the urge to bolt, to put distance between us before those festering wounds could bleed anew. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice low and earnest, as if he were asking for permission to enter my life again. It was a question laced with fear, vulnerability, and unrestrained hope, the very elements that had torn my world apart. That I glanced at my mother, her tired yet attentive eyes flicking between us, weighing the past against some flickering promise of redemption. "Mom," I murmured uncertainly, seeking her guidance as if she could illuminate the path ahead in her fragile state. "Do what you think is best, dear," she replied softly, the edges of her smile tinged with cautious optimism. "Sometimes, the first step is the hardest. But it's your choice." Her words felt like both a blessing and a burden, and I felt more lost than ever. If that flicker of hope my mother spoke of was to ignite, it needed fuel. But could I risk reigniting a fire that had nearly consumed my childhood? I looked at him, this man whose absence shaped much of my life. Lines of remorse crinkled the corners of his eyes as he took another tentative step forward, hands raised as if to show he came in peace. "That I know I don't deserve this," he started, swallowing hard. "But I need you to understand I've spent years regretting walking away. It's taken me a long time to recognize the damage I did, not just to you, but to us." His voice trembled, revealing the raw edges of a changed man, one who bore the weight of realization. Something about the sincerity in his tone tugged at the corners of my heart. It was almost humanizing. I felt my defenses begin to wane, the armor I had built inching toward chinks, but every tiny push forward clashed with the instinct to guard the sacred fragments of my soul. "Seems like you've had your share of time to think," I replied, carefully reining in my emotions so that they wouldn't spiral toward anger or rejection. "But believing that you've changed is different from proving it." His shoulders sagged as if the years of absence bore down upon him, yet his eyes held something deeper, an earnestness that seemed genuine, even amidst the brittle history. "I'd do anything to show you how much I regret it, anything to help now." "What can I do?" I wanted to scream that it was too late, his time was up, the clock had moved too far forward in our lives for second chances. But the flicker of hope, a tiny flame ignited from my mother's words, nudged me forward. Did I truly want to disentangle from the present, or was there a way to navigate this chaos together? "Just be honest," I said, trying to sound resolute despite the emotional tremor in my voice. "You'll have to face the truth of what happened, and I'll need time to trust anyway. This isn't just about you anymore, it's about us." Before he could answer, the familiar sound of my phone buzzing interrupted the moment, a stark reminder of the outside world. I fished it out of my pocket, glancing at the screen. It was a text from Ben, the faint promise of stability amidst this emotional maelstrom. "Hey, just checking in. How's everything? If you need to talk, I'm here." I felt the warmth of his words wrap around me, but just as quickly, it pushed me back into the tempest. Switching my focus momentarily back to my father, I said, "This isn't just about healing, but reconciling with the past, which I find harder than letting the air seep back into a punctured balloon." "Can you understand that?" "I understand. More than you think," he replied, his vulnerability evident in his eyes. "I want to help, I want to be part of your life." My heart thudded painfully against my ribs. I felt a rush of tears forming, threatening to overflow the emotional dam I had built. Instead, I took a deep breath. I guess this is where we start, then. A small step toward something, the air thickened again, the silence stretched as I watched my father's face. Hope mingled with apprehension, a fragile balance striking between us. I needed to know he wouldn't flinch at my mother's request for forgiveness, that his presence wouldn't reopen wounds long thought healed, but just then, as if the universe prepared to unleash even more chaos, the room door swung open violently. A nurse, her face pale and lined with urgency, rushed in without acknowledging our gathering. "Ma'am, we need you to step out," she instructed, the gravity in her tone unsettling. "There's been a complication." My breath caught in my throat. I glanced at my mother, the color drained from her face as she looked from me to my father, the words distinctive in their finality. The reality of this moment crashed down like a wave, eroding the fragile thread we had started to weave. My heart raced, swirling with anxiety, as dread flooded the room. "Complication?" I echoed, panic gripping me as I followed the nurse toward the door. "Stay close," my father called after me, the desperation in his voice sending chills up my spine, but the threshold loomed before me, and as I stepped into the hallway, uncertainty flooded my veins. Would the journey we began just moments before dissolve with my mother's fate, or was this simply the beginning of a far longer road? I felt the weight of 1,000 questions hang in the air, and just like that, hope and fear stood side by side, their dance a desperate testament to how quickly everything can change. The fluorescent lights above buzzed irritably, casting a sterile glow over the sterile white tiles of the hallway. I wedged myself between two cold metal chairs, the harshness of the moment slicing through me. Each tick of the wall clock echoed in my ears, heightening my anxiety. My father's voice still echoed in my thoughts, but now they were mingled with other fears. The uncertainty of my mother's condition tainted everything like a dark canvas overshadowing a flicker of hope. "Is she going to be okay?" The words slipped from my lips before I could stop them, directed at a passing nurse who I hoped would offer some glimmer of reassurance. She paused, her restrained expression offering too little just as dread unfurled within me. "We're doing the best we can. Just waiting for results." Her curt response brushed past me like a ghost, leaving behind an emptiness. Seconds turned into minutes, minutes into an eternity. I kept replaying the scene in my mind, me father standing there vulnerable and broken, and the tension in my chest twisted tighter. The agony of that moment clashed with the desperate ache of my mother's potential loss. Suddenly, the hallway shifted as a familiar figure appeared. Ben sauntered towards me, his casual demeanor appearing almost misplaced amidst the chaos. I felt a rush of warmth at his presence, a slight buffer against the palpable anxiety filling the air. "Hey," he said softly, crouching in front of me so his eyes were level with mine. "I got your text." "What's going on?" I inhaled sharply, struggling to articulate the whirlwind of emotions and fears tripping over one another. "It's my mom, there was a complication." I felt my voice waver. I don't know what that means." "They haven't told me anything." He placed a comforting hand over mine, his grip steady and reassuring. "I'm here. Whatever you need, I'm here." His gaze searched mine, offering a semblance of stability. A spark of gratitude warmed my chest. In this moment, amidst so much uncertainty, his kindness felt like an anchor, grounding me as I swayed in turbulent seas. "Thank you for coming," I whispered, squeezing his hand. "It means a lot." "I'll stay as long as I need to," he said, a gentle resolve in his voice. The door to my mother's room swung open, and a doctor stepped out, straightening his coat as he adjusted his glasses. My chest tightened, every muscle tethered to the gravity of his presence. "Family of Marlene Thompson?" he asked, and my heart sank into my stomach. "That's us," Ben answered, shifting to stand beside me, his presence a balm against the rising tide of dread. "Your mother had a minor setback during treatment, but we resolved it swiftly. She is stable now," the doctor explained, and a wave of relief washed over me. Stable, how vague yet impactful that word was. "Can we see her?" I all but pleaded, my heart racing at the thought of wrapping my arms around her again, of hearing her voice reassuring me that everything would be okay. "Of course, but just for a few minutes." "She's still recovering," he replied, leading us back down the hallway with purposeful strides. As we entered her room, my heart tightened again, not from fear this time but from a hopeful anticipation. She lay there, color returning to her cheeks, alive and fragile. The machines beeping around her mirrored the rhythm of my heart. Steady, steady, Mom, I exclaimed, rushing to her side. I grasped her hand, feeling the warmth seep through to my freezing fingers. You're okay, I think I'm just tired. What a way to take a nap, she joked weakly, her spirit shining even through exhaustion. Just don't do it again, I teased, a laugh cracking through my worry. I can't take another phone call like that. Ben stayed quietly behind me, an understanding glint in his eye as he watched the reunion unfold. It was moments like these that reminded me how precious it all was, how every laugh shared could be a stitch in healing frayed edges. My mother turned her gaze to him. And who's this lovely young man? This is Ben, Mom. My friend, I said, still holding her hand tight. He came to check on you. It's nice to meet you. Ben. Her calm demeanor wrapped around me like a quilt, easing some of the tension that had clung painfully to my heart. The momentary laughter felt like a fragile thread, binding us in warmth amidst the uncertainty that still lingered. I savored it, holding it dear as I leaned in closer. But just as the fear began to recede, the door swung open once again. My father appeared, breathless but with a look of frantic hope etched on his face. Is she all right? He demanded, the worry shadowing his every word. The room fell silent, tension swirling as my gaze shifted between him and my mother lying helplessly in the bed. The warmth that had briefly wrapped around me dissipated at the sudden shift in atmosphere. Questions hung in the air like heavy fog, remnants of the earlier confrontation looming. I felt Ben's hand brush against my back, an instinctive reassurance, but my mind swirled with newfound turmoil. The balance I had just begun to feel teetered dangerously close to a cliff, and for a fleeting moment, I wondered if the fragile connection we'd started to forge would hold or shatter in the aftermath of my father's arrival. As my mother's eyes widened, caught between my father's desperation and my own kaleidoscope of emotions, I sensed something shifting. The very fabric of what I thought was a turning point suddenly felt like a storm about to break, leaving me standing on the precipice of a choice I was not yet ready to make. The sterile smell of antiseptic lingered in the air, a constant reminder of the fragility that surrounded us. My heart pounded in tandem with the beeping machines. My mother's gaze wavered between my father's furrowed brow and my own tightly wound expression, a delicate balance of love and fear that threatened to fracture at any moment. David, my mother whispered, her voice hoarse yet warm, pulling my father's attention back to her. It's okay. I'm all right. Her attempt at reassurance seemed futile now, hanging weakly in the air amidst the growing tension. He stepped closer, hands trembling slightly as he reached for her. You scared me, Marlene. I thought. He stopped abruptly, his voice cracking. The strain between them was palpable, like taut string ready to snap, and I felt the weight of the moment settle heavily on my chest. Ben shifted beside me, still a silent guardian, his steady presence a reminder that I didn't have to shoulder this impending storm alone. I appreciated his quiet strength in a way that transcended friendship. It felt as though I had a lifeline in an ocean of turmoil. I lowered myself into the chair next to my mother's bed, my fingers not leaving hers. We're all here now, Dad, I said quietly. Let's just focus on Mom, for a moment. I thought I caught a glimpse of understanding pass between my parents, a fleeting acknowledgement of the shared struggle that had brought us all here. But then, that understanding flickered out, replaced by the disarray that had become our lives. My father clenched his jaw, taking a step back as if trying to create distance from the emotions that radiated between us. What happened? He demanded, his voice strained with an edge that made my stomach churn. The doctor said you were stable, but why the complications? My mother opened her mouth to respond, yet the word seemed to stick in her throat. She glanced at me, and I could see the fear reflected in her eyes. It was a look I had seen far too often lately, one that tugged at my heart. It was just a minor setback, she finally managed. Nothing I can't handle. I promise, it wasn't as bad as it sounds, but my dad wasn't convinced. His face was a mask of anxious lines, thrusting anxiety deeper into our little sphere. You need to be honest with us, Marlene. We can't afford to tiptoe around these issues, he said, the sharpness in his tone stinging the air. A brief silence fell, and the gravity of his words settled in the room, straining my mother's fragile hopes. It's exhausting, she murmured, squeezing my hand tighter as if bracing herself against a wave of incoming emotions. I turned to Ben, desperate to convey my unspoken plea for calm amidst the chaos that seemed to echo in every word exchanged between my parents. His eyes were warm, reflecting a quiet understanding, but it couldn't block out the growing turmoil around us. Just as the tension thickened, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I instinctively pulled it out, surprised to see a message from my sister. 3 simple words that rattled me: Dad fell again. The shock of those words stung, vying for my attention like a siren cutting through the quiet. What is it? My father's voice cut through my swirling thoughts, his eyes narrowing in scrutiny as he attempted to peer into my world of worry. Is something wrong? It's nothing, I stammered, unsure of how to weave this new chaos into the fragile web that was now our family dynamic. I glanced back at my mother, whose eyes widened with instinctual concern. But the fire was already growing in my father's gaze, igniting suspicion. No, it's not nothing. What's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost. I felt trapped between 2 swirling thunderstorms, either ready to erupt. Ben's supportive presence began to drift like a leaf caught in a gust of wind. Why don't we all take a breath? He suggested gently, but I sensed the tremor in his voice reflecting the electric emotional current flowing through the room. You know, your sister can't even keep it together herself, my father seethed, the bitterness in his words snaking through the air. It's a mess out there, and we've got our worries piled high already without her bringing more drama into this. Don't say that, I interrupted, rising slightly in my seat. Shesha's going through her own battles right now. That doesn't mean we don't deserve to know what's going on. His frustration echoed against the walls, clutching at my chest as I wrestled with feelings of anger and guilt. My heart raced as I felt the walls of our truths begin to crumble further. Dad, maybe you should just take a breath. I don't want to take a breath. I want my family back, he thundered, his voice echoing in the small room, shaking the very foundation we were trying to build. In that moment, panic surged through me, unearthly and choking, a weight I thought I'd never be forced to carry. What family? I blurted, unable to hold the emotions in any longer. We've all been falling apart for months. Silence descended like a suffocating fog. My mother's face crumpled, and I felt the air thicken with unvoiced truths, the room spiraling into a schism of unresolved tensions and unrecognizable fear. And just as I thought I might drown under the pressure, Ben stepped forward, breaking the numbness. Hey, can we just take a moment? Breathe. This isn't the time for accusations. But even in that small act of kindness, the dam inside me cracked a little further, and beneath the facade of control, I felt a new tempest brewing. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't even check it. I had enough storms to navigate already. In that instant, with uncertainty hanging silently between us, I felt the weight of something unknown lurking just beneath the surface. I couldn't place it, but an unsettling sense whispered of upheavals yet to come, a truth I was terrified to uncover. And as I searched Ben's eyes, suddenly feeling isolated amidst my family's chaos, I recognized with a shudder that perhaps kindness would not be enough to weather this storm. The revelation that there was more to unravel than any of us could bear loomed ahead, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to face it. There was a profound stillness after my words hung in the air, a silence pregnant with unexpressed emotions. I felt like a ship lost in a tumultuous sea, hoping for rescue but knowing that there were no guarantees. Each breath I took carried the weight of 1,000 fears and unarticulated desires, and I could sense that the walls of our family were crumbling, leaving us exposed to the unpredictable currents of vulnerability. Ben remained nearby, his presence both comforting and unsettling, as if he held a mirror to my own inner turmoil. I glanced at him, a silent plea for help etched across my features. He responded with a subtle nod, a reassurance in this chaos that I wasn't entirely adrift. Can we just pause for a moment? Ben's voice sliced through the tension. We're all here because we care. That matters more than whatever else is happening outside. My mother blinked slowly, tears gathering in her eyes. "I don't want to fight," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "I just want us to be okay." The words were meant for my father, but they resonated with a truth that swept through our collective heart, binding us in this moment of shared despair. But my father, still caught in the storm of his own fears, shook his head. "Okay isn't good enough, Marlene. I need to know you're going to be all right." His brow furrowed deeply, the lines on his forehead etched in worry and frustration, creating a landscape of tension across his face, and there it was again, the fracture line between hope and despair, faith and fear. My heart ached for both of them, caught in an emotional tempest that was spiraling out of their control. As much as I wanted to reach out and mend the growing divide, I felt helpless, weighed down by my own fear that there might be no solution big enough to bridge this chasm. Feeling restless, I rose from my seat, needing to release the energy that had built up within me. I stepped towards the window, trying to anchor myself with the view of the horizon beyond the sterile confines of the hospital room. The world outside looked serene, oblivious to the turmoil within us. My phone buzzed again and again, pulling me back, puncturing the delicate tension. I hesitated, an instinctual urge to ignore it rising, but guilt gnawed at my insides. Could I afford to leave any stone unturned? As I reluctantly pulled out my phone, I was met with a cascade of messages that made my heart plummet. My sister's voice came through louder than ever, and I read her latest messages in rapid succession. "Dad isn't doing well, that he needs you now more than ever. Please come home, Mom won't be able to take this." Each message struck like a bolt of lightning, illuminating the growing fear in the back of my mind, threatening to plunge us deeper into disarray. I read them again and again, trying to discern if there was an unspoken truth buried beneath her frantic words, a hint of understanding I was somehow missing. I turned back to my parents, searching for a way to weave this vital information into the narrow fabric of our space, but my father's face was taut with worry, and my mother's eyes glistened with unshed tears. In that moment, it began to dawn on me that we were standing on the precipice of something larger than just my mother's health. It was about our family's cohesion, the very bond that had once anchored us against life's tempests. "Dad," I said slowly, drawing the weight of his gaze, "I think we need to talk about what's happening back home. It's not just about Mom anymore, it's about us as a family and what we're facing together." "What do you mean?" he asked, a tinge of apprehension threading through his words that I swallowed hard, feeling the world tilt beneath me as I spoke my sister's words out loud for the first time, wrestling with the urge to protect my family from this rising tide of dread. "It's about our family, Dad. It sounds like things with you and Jennifer might be worse than we thought. She needs us right now." My father's expression darkened, confusion flickering in his eyes. "What are you talking about?" "She's too absorbed in her own life to be reaching out to us. Dad. She reached out for you. She's scared," I said firmly, not backing down but feeling the defensiveness rise in me. "We're all scared. That's why we can't keep hiding from these feelings." Marlene's brow crinkled as her eyes darted between us. "What do you mean, home? Is something wrong?" There was a moment where I thought I might break under the weight of the truth I had to deliver, but I pressed onward. The bond of our family was fragile, strung tightly between love and hurt, yet somehow always compelled to draw closer despite the distance and discord. But then, the door swung open, and a nurse stepped in, disrupting not only our conversation but the entire emotional landscape we had built inside the confinement of that hospital room. "You should all brace yourselves," she said quietly, not meeting our eyes. "There's something we need to discuss regarding your mother's treatment." In that fleeting moment, I felt the ground shift beneath our feet. Hope wavered, and a new dread frothed at the edges of my consciousness, unfurling a fear I couldn't quite place. As the weight of it enveloped me, I held my breath. The reality crashing down this storm had only just begun, and the unpredictable future loomed heavy and dark. I wouldn't know if this storm would shatter what was left of our family or fortify the bonds we so desperately needed. And my heart raced faster than before, bracing for the revelation I wasn't prepared to face, teetering on the cusp of heartbreak and hope, as the nurse prepared to pull back the curtains on our fate. It felt as if time suspended in those moments within the fragile walls of my mother's hospital room. The nurse's words echoed through my mind, painting shadowed images of uncertainty. My heart pulsated wildly against my ribcage, gripped tightly by the emotional chaos swirling around us. The enormity of the moment felt almost suffocating, each breath a reminder of the fragility we all lived with. Is something wrong with her? My mother's voice trembled as she clutched my hand tighter, her fingers shaking in a frantic dance of anxiety. I looked around the room, feeling the air thicken with the sentiments of fear and worry that seemed to wrap around us like a heavy blanket. The nurse took a deep breath, her countenance shifting slightly as she considered her words. We need to discuss potential side effects of the new treatments and additional care options. The calmness and professionalism in her tone juxtaposed against the turmoil of emotions in the room, rendering her statement almost surreal. It can't be that serious, my father rasped, a near-panicked edge radiating from his voice. I witnessed a transformation in him as he stepped forward, brow furrowed and muscles taut as if every part of him was reaching for a lifeline. She just needs to get through this, right? It's just a hiccup? A minor setback? My mother's grip on my hand tightened, her eyes locked onto mine, searching for reassurance. I was still struggling to find myself. As if sensing the struggle within us all, the nurse responded softly. We can hope for the best. However, it's essential that we prepare ourselves for all possible outcomes. I know this is difficult, but open communication is crucial during this process. With every word she spoke, the gravity of reality sank deeper, a weight I hadn't anticipated. My heart fluttered with the desperate need to alleviate the pain etched across my mother's face. She wore her vulnerabilities on her sleeve, hollow eyes shimmering with unspilled tears, echoes of fears unexpressed. I am strong enough for this. I can do it, my mother said bravely, though the tremor in her voice told a different story. The flicker of resolve in her eyes shone through the fear, but I knew the battle to cling to that resolve would be arduous. Tension pulsed through my father as he took a small step back, struggling to contain the concern trembling on his features as he searched for some semblance of hope. I felt the flicker of anger at the back of my throat, the helplessness that came with being unable to mend the fractures in both my parents, that they were more likely to disperse than unite amidst chaos. Mom, we're all here for you, no matter what, I said, forcing strength into my voice as I squeezed her hand. And we'll face this together. I turned to my father. You want to fix things, right? You want to be here for Mom. This is the moment to prove it. His gaze locked with mine, understanding flickering in his eyes, and for a split second, I thought I saw a hint of the man I once knew. But before any of us could move forward, a piercing ringtone broke the charged atmosphere, causing all our heads to snap toward my phone as it vibrated perilously close to the edge of the table. Not now, I muttered, my voice laced with frustration, instinctively reaching for it. But as I prepared to silence it, I was met with shock as I saw the name displayed on the screen, an unexpected call from my sister. Hesitant but unable to ignore the urgency bubbling beneath the surface, I accepted it, my heart racing with anticipation. Hello? I managed, trying to keep my voice steady. Please, you need to come home. Her words flew out in a rush, laced with urgency and fear. Dad fell again. I don't know what to do. I need you here, right now. Mum's with him, and there's no one who can help. The panic radiated through the line, and I could feel the dread creeping back into my bones, a familiar weight that I had been trying to shed. That I can't just leave Mom. My voice trembled, torn between the intense familial obligations pressing on my heart. She needs me. We're just beginning. But my sister cut me off. Her voice cracking. Do you understand? If you aren't here for him, I don't know who will be. My heart lurched. I glanced over at my parents, who were watching intently, feelings churning in their chests as my sister's full meaning sunk in. Could this be another opportunity? Quiet desperation crept into my bones as I tried to navigate conflicting loyalties. Okay, I murmured, the decision rushing chaotically through me. I needed to be strong for everyone, just like I had promised. I'll be there as soon as I can. As I hung up, panic washing over me like icy water, I felt the room tilt dangerously beneath my feet. It suddenly dawned on me that the fragile web of our family needed mending far more than I had acknowledged before. And within those moments, something inside me shifted slowly, a dawning understanding of the irony that marked our family. In the now familiar silence, I faced my parents, my breath shallow but steady. I need to go home for just a while. It's about all of us now. Please understand. An eerie silence enveloped us, but I could see the intricate pathways our lives now forged. The connections were fragile but real, intertwining our dreams and fears, the ties that might yet bind us. "You'll take care of things here," my father said, his voice suddenly steady, and I felt a rush of comfort in his resolve. "I won't let anything happen to either of you." And in that moment, I felt the years of pain slip just slightly away, replaced with acceptance, a weight lifted as if those long-buried wounds opened to let fresh air flow in. A grudging understanding shimmered through our heart-chest prospect of healing would begin anew if we dared to nurture our bruised histories. As I stood between the worlds of our past and what could emerge from the fractures, I felt tears swell within me, raw yet cleansing. I knew this was nothing less than a beckoning, a tender invitation to confront all that shattered our lives. And as I squeezed my mother's hand tightly, grounding myself in the warmth of her presence, I made a silent vow to chart our course through the stormy terrain ahead. The connections that we sought might yet pull us together tighter than we imagined, giving room for hope to flourish amidst uncertainty. "Let's take this one step at a time," I whispered, looking at the faces I loved, each a reflection of the battle we would face together. "There's still hope, even in the dark." And as those fragile yet powerful words filled the room, we began to find the melody of healing woven through our broken hearts, binding us together as we took the first steps in this long road. The choice to step into the unknown became our greatest strength, a secret treasure we would protect fiercely as we moved toward brighter days. In this unpredictable life, we could face the unknown, burdens cradled in hands of love. With the shadows of the past dancing at our heels, we weren't just survivors, we were warriors, undeniable in our search for connection. And I realized in that moment that we were not just three broken souls grasping for healing, we were a family reawakened, ready to embrace the magic woven in forgiveness. We'd find our way, stitching together the pieces of our hearts until we formed something new, something whole. In the depths of uncertainty, I inhaled deeply, an electric pulse coursing through my veins, a reminder that together, we could ignite the star-sworn and weathered yet bright against the dark expanse of our past. And as we ventured toward the horizon, I held on to the hope that flickered just beyond the chaos of our lives, ready to soar into the light. And with that, I whispered to the fragile daisy in my pocket whose petals echoed the promise of resurgence that it was time to bloom.